If you think back in your life, think of a time where you're betrayed. The hardest betrayals that we ever get are those that are the closest to us. I mean, for some of us, it could be a divorce. For some of us, it could be a friend who just stabbed us in the back to gain something else. I remember, this is a long time ago, I remember in high school having a girlfriend and being betrayed by somebody who stole my girlfriend from me. And at the end of the day, it was a decision for both of them. But there's this betrayal that you feel deep down in your gut. I mean, you think about that feeling. Think about the anger, the pain, all these phases that you go through, and then the thought comes to your mind, revenge. What am I going to do to get that person back? Because they wronged me, I need to do something to them. And betrayals, it's one of those things that we never think is going to happen to us until it does. Then when it does happen to us, we get flooded with all these emotions, all of these feelings that typically wouldn't be a part of who we are. And yet they come flooding in all at one time because of this sense of, I have been wronged by somebody really close to me. I'll give you an example out of my own life with our marriage, with Kendra and me. You know, we have boys at the house, and a couple of them are older, and there's a bond that we have. But my wife trusts that I'm going to take care of her. One of a wife's greatest needs is security, for her husband to make her feel secure. And recently, with all of this that's been going on, we're all adapting to a new norm, and we've kind of pushed on what does that mean for her and for us and for me and for the kids. And in a sense, you know, kids, they're going to push an envelope, and they're going to push that boundary until there's no more boundaries. They fall off the cliff. And some of the older ones have actually taken that, and they feel like they can kind of backtalk their mother, my wife. But in that, I've allowed some of that sometimes. And so I betrayed her. And she just had to come to me and tell me, look, I feel like you're not defending me. Now, as a husband, to hear that, number one, I go on the defensive. How can you say that? I always defend you. Maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong, whatever. But I betrayed her. I betrayed her because I wasn't the husband that God in His book called me to be to her. And in that, it made her feel angry, insignificant, not a part of the family, all of these things at one time. And I had to apologize to her about it. And I had to sit my kids down and let them know where they basically are in the pecking order of the house. But that betrayal, that feeling, is always there. You know, if you've ever been betrayed, which most of you, if not all of you, have before, you know that feeling. You know the feeling of being wronged. You know the feeling of someone saying they're going to do something, or being committed to be a part of your life and doing something totally different that hurts you. You know that feeling, and you know you want revenge, or you've separated completely from them, or you want nothing to do with it. Whatever the case may be, you know that feeling. And today, day 4, 8 days of Easter, Wednesday, Jesus is at the last night of His life with His disciples. And in everything that's going on, with how He's spending time with His disciples, He makes a prophecy about what's about to happen. He basically tells them, someone is going to betray me. Can you imagine the pain? Imagine this. Jesus, God and man, knows what's going to happen before He even came to earth, and yet He still came. Yet He still allowed this person to be part of His 12. And He's telling the guys about this. And he's going through all of this. So you got to imagine, as a man, as a person, that maybe Jesus felt something. But was it what we feel? Is it the revenge piece of it? What was that? But open your Bibles, John 13. We're going to be in John 13 today. And if you look at this story, it's starting in verse 21. So we're in John chapter 13, verse 21. This is God. Jesus is at His last night on earth. He's with His disciples, and He's talking to them. And this is what He does. Matter of fact, He's just washed their feet, which we're actually going to open up and talk about tomorrow in the 8 days teaching. But tonight, we're talking about this one. And Jesus has just washed their feet. Now he's sitting down, and this is what he says. John 13, verse 21 says, when Jesus has said this, he was troubled in his spirit and testified, truly I tell you, one of you will betray me. So we see right here, even at the very beginning of this, that one of the feelings that Jesus has is that he's troubled in his spirit. And he just tells them, one of you will betray me. Verse 22, the disciples started looking at one another, uncertain which one he was speaking about. Can you imagine? I mean, can you imagine that you have 12, 13 people there, and one says, hey, one of you are going to betray me. And you're like, it's not me. No, I know it's not me. This is what they're thinking. One of his disciples, the one Jesus loved, was reclining close beside Jesus. Simon Peter motioned to him to find out who it was he was talking about. So he leaned back against Jesus and asked him, Lord, who is it? Jesus replied, he's the one I give the piece of bread to after I dipped it. When he had dipped the bread, he gave it to Judas, Simon Iscariot's son. After Judas ate the piece of bread, Satan entered him. So we see that Jesus is even telling them who it is. And then here comes Satan with this opportunity. He's going to take it. Just remember, Satan will take every opportunity. So Jesus told him, what you're doing, do quickly. So he tells Judas, man, what you're doing, go. None of those reclining at the table knew why he said this to him. Since Judas kept the money back, some thought Jesus was telling him, buy what we need for the festival, or what we should give something to the poor. After receiving the piece of bread, he immediately left, and it was night. So Jesus has just basically said, one of you are going to betray me, and then he even turned around and told them who it was. They have no idea still at this point who it is. They think he's going to go buy something, but Jesus has basically told Judas, go do what you're going to do. And we see that Jesus is troubled in his spirit. And when you read on in the Bible and you look at this and you see that it was just 30 pieces of silver that Judas betrayed Jesus for. Now, people today will dispute how much is that in today's terms. Here, it's not the point. That's not the point. Judas betrayed Jesus for silver. Judas did not make Jesus his number one. Whatever was going on in his life, he chose to do something else, to betray Jesus so Jesus would be taken to the cross. So you have two different sides going on here. You have Judas, who's betraying Jesus, and he's going to choose to make this action, take this choice. You have Jesus, who's troubled in his spirit, and what you got. Think about what's got to be going on here as this time comes around. And you got to wonder, after Jesus did this, what did he feel? Because here's the thing. When you think about the silver, in your Easter box that you got, there's 2 pieces of silver in there. They're not real silver, sorry, they're toys. But it signifies the betrayal of Jesus. This is what Judas took to betray the Son of God. Judas betrayed Jesus for money. For money. What about in our own lives? What are we betraying Jesus with? Now, think about that statement before you answer that question, because it's not about what are we betraying Jesus with to send him off somewhere. But if you are a follower of Christ, you have said, Jesus is my everything. He is my number one. Is he your number one? As we prepare our hearts for Easter, we talk about Palm Sunday. Would you pick Jesus on a donkey? Or Pontius Pilate in this glamorous procession that he brought in? Would you give up the perfume and lay it at Jesus' feet, or would you continue to keep it in your heart, talking to Jesus about how you've earned that and deserve it? Would you be the grain that dies to yourself? Would you just kill yourself spiritually to follow Jesus? Because if your answer is no, then to some extent you're creating an idol somewhere to betray Jesus. Every human has four major needs in their life. They want to be accepted. They want to have a purpose. They want to have security, and they want to have an identity. It's that identity piece that we try to fill ourselves. If your identity is in yourself, in your family, in your wife, in your kids, in your job, in your hobbies, then your identity is not in Jesus. And you are betraying Jesus for those things. So as we think about 8 days of Easter, as we prepare our hearts to move into Easter, today's lesson is simply, what is it in your life that you're putting in front of Jesus so He's not the number one in your life? And while that may be hard, or we may have to take a good, hard look at our lives, what is it? Because we may say, I deserve to do that. Or we may say, that's not really a betrayal. I'm not really lifting that idol up. But is that really true? Because Jesus wants your everything. Let me put it. Jesus wants your obedience, not your sacrifice. He wants your obedience, not your sacrifice. God wants your undying love. He wants every moment of you because He paid the price for you. Here's my prayer for you as we go through today. I pray that you look at your life and you just explore your heart. And if there's anything in the way of Jesus, that you just pray to Jesus today and say, take this from me. Take the urge to have it for me. Just take it from me. Because the first relationship that we should have in all of our lives is that with Jesus. So if that's not it today, I pray that you make it that today.